You saw that? It's nothing, it's kind of noisy. You have to reach the
Another bigger recorder. Way, but 4 buttons. Yeah, that's why I'm trying this.
No, you're actually going to proceed.
It is too much noise all at once. It doesn't
Yes. I know, I don't think that I sent you, the changes have made, the font is back, so words are separated in a lot of spots and stuff. I just wanted to know that is made, that was, that
These are? Do they work like these? Their outputs?
Where do we see?
Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the special May 2026 deliberative session. Thank you for your participation in this important meeting today. If you all would please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a little bit of housekeeping this morning. The exits are there, there, and there. You're like a steward. And the restrooms will be on this door if you need them. My name is Regina Smith-Gattazano. I'm the moderator for our town. We have with us this morning John LaForce, Chair of our Select Board, Rebecca Hawthorne, and Town Administrator Andy Robertson, and our Assistant Town Administrator Denise Duval. And on this side we have Shannon James Brown, who is our Town Clerk, Diane Fluent, who is our Assistant Town Clerk, and Linda Ronhold, who is our Deputy Clerk. Our supervisors of the checklist back there are Bambi Miller and Gloria Quigley. So the purpose of this meeting is the reconsideration of the operating budget warrant article as allowed by New Hampshire state statute, specifically New Hampshire RSA 4013, 10 and 14. This article may be amended or passed as written and moved forward to our official ballot, which will be decided by our voters at the polling place on Tuesday, June the 9th. Each member of this deliberative body who wishes to speak, amend, or vote on this article should be previously registered voters of the town and should have checked in with our checklist supervisors at the main entrance and received your voter card. If you've not checked in, please make sure you do so. The moderator will allow others to speak if there's a general consensus that they are contributing important information to the understanding of the article, such as our town department heads or those experts that might be able to shed some more light on that article. As the moderator, I do not strictly conform to Robert's Rules of Order, rather will guide civil and orderly debate towards productive rendering of this article until such time as is properly overruled by the majority of the voting body or by appeal. I do reserve the right to rule out to any person out of order and request they yield the floor to or be removed. Any person representing an article or wishing to amend our article is required to come to the There's a blue line right there, so we can hear you. Clearly state your name and address and wait to be recognized by the moderators. Make sure that our officials get your information, and then you'll be recognized to speak to the article. If you have a question of order that may be raised by just rising from your in place, a person may speak a second time only after others all have had a chance to speak. And if a person has a question of procedure or is unsure of what to do or how to make a point, they should ask me and I'll help you figure that out. Our warrant article will be presented and read by a member of our select board. The presenter will be recognized as the first to speak to the article. The floor will then be open for consideration by our body here today. Motions to amend the article can be made by registered voters. If seconded, then the amendment can be discussed and voted upon. However, we are limited by New Hampshire RSA 40-13 that no article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of that article. This restricts amendments to word changes that help clarify the article in the positive or which change the dollar amount to be appropriated. If the amendment is passed, the changes will appear in that ballot in June. Amendments should be handed in writing to our town clerk or presented in a way that the clerk can recite the amendment to the body before we all vote. When discussion is finished or a question is called by the body, the moderator will put the question forward for a vote by asking for a show of your voter cards. If the vote is close, the moderator will call for a count. Prior to a hand vote, if 5 registered voters request a secret ballot, you have to present that to the clerk. The paper ballot will be distributed and collected by the ballot clerks. After the article is passed, there will be a motion made to reconstrict consideration of that article. If seconded, this will be voted on. This routine action ensures no changes can take place later in our meeting or if other articles are presented. Now, I'm going to pass it over to Andy.
Sure. I have just a few introductory slides. If you can't read the print up here, there are hard copies in the back. The print is small, but hopefully it's more legible than maybe what we've got on the screen. So switch to the next slide for me. Why is the select board asking for reconsideration of the budget? On March 10th, the proposed operating budget was $6,085,545, which took into consideration the rising costs for insurance, goods, services. It did not include any new positions or capital projects, no new buildings, no new vehicles, that sort of thing. Since the proposed budget did not pass, the default operating budget of $5,686,521, a reduction of $399,024, would become the operating budget on July 1st, 2026. The select board has some concerns about being able to provide the services the community relies on if the budget is reduced by $399,000, $400,000. What revisions has the select board proposed? The select board and department heads have met, scrutinized the budget, have reduced the previously proposed budget by $173,208. These reductions include cutting funds to the social service agencies, eliminating funds for overtime wages, training, conferences, recreational activities, library materials, and the budgets for all of the commissions and committees in town as well. What's the board's plan if the revised request is defeated? Well, if the town has to fall back on the default budget, the board will have to make significant cuts that could include terminating personnel and reducing hours that the town office and transfer station, for example, are open to the public. And that's essentially why we're here. The actual warrant article that's presented to the town gives the board the ability to request a second hearing like this, deliberative session, to talk about the budget. So the board has chosen to exercise that right, and why we're here this morning. Thanks.
Jeff, do you want to present that one article?
Yes. Shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purpose set forth therein totaling $5,912,337. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $5,686,521, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the select board or by law. The select board recommends this article, majority vote required. This article is projected to add 30 cents per $1,000 of assessed value to the 2026 tax rate.
Is there a second? Rebecca, seconded? We're now open for Tom?
Could I ask a question about the clarification of that?
Can you come up to
Warren?
the,
Name and address.
and say your name and address, please, Tom?
Tom Dolan, 11 Lamprey Lane. I just had a question on the first statement of the warrant article, indicating, the amounts set forth on the budget, posted with the warrant. Which budget is that? Is that the original budget posted on the original warrant?
No, the $5,912,337 amount is the amended budget.
Okay, so there's no reference in that opening statement to the original budget?
I can give you that number, the
No,
second.
I know what the number is. I just wondered which warrant it was referring to.
This is a revised warrant article.
Because it says, "Art as amended by the vote on the first session." I assuming that reference is to the original budget.
I would assume so, yes.
Well, that's kind of a segue to my question is, and I suppose it would have to be voted upon, on whether or not to provide for, the proposed warrant provides for two options, the revised budget and the default budget. By the select board's own statements, the revised budget does not fully meet the town's needs. The default budget seriously curtails the town's ability to provide the necessary services and operations. So, my question is, should the warrant article be amended? It now provides the voters two options, the revised and the default. Considering the impact of those, why not provide an option for, again, stating the original operating budget, which I can assume the town feels as though, and the department managers feel, this budget represents satisfactorily fully servicing the members of the community. So I don't know whether that needs to be put to a vote to modify that warrant article, or what?
That's exactly what would happen.
Yeah, are you proposing an amendment?
Pardon?
Are you proposing an amendment to the warrant
Yes, I would
article?
propose an amendment that the warrant article be written to provide the voters of Lee three options with an impact statement for each of those three options. The original being that the town fully services the requirements of the community. The second to say impacts the services or provides reduced services to the community. And then, of course, the default budget seriously curtails town operations. I think if the voters had these impact statements, it might just help to better understand what's involved.
If you wish, yes.
And not to cut you off, but I don't believe we can provide three options. I think you could make an amendment to propose the $6,085,545 or the default, but I don't believe we have the ability to put three options in the article just because of the language that's required to be used for the vote.
Yes, but
Yes.
I do think you can make an amendment to the wording though, to at least try to get some of that awareness.
Excuse me, you can raise the amount that's in here, or you can decrease it. You have that option from the floor.
I see.
So you can say, I recommend, I wanna raise the budget to the original amount, which 6 million, so forth, dollars.
$6,085,545.
And then ask for a second, that would open discussion on raising it,
Okay,
all right? We don't have to go through all what you suggested.
all right.
You can either raise it or lower it.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to give deference to the select board of the town management who worked to reduce it and identify those absolutely required services. I was just trying to provide an option for all three. If, however, that can't legally be done, then I guess an option, but again, well, could the modification be that, we vote on the original option, the full budget, with the default, budget be the revised budget, and not necessarily last year's budget?
No, there's a very strict definition of what the default budget is, that the Department of Revenue Administration forces us to abide by. So just to sort of piggyback on the chairman's comments, you basically can present a new revised budget number. The default budget number has to stay the same, but it's really a two-option.
Okay, well, I guess in that case, considering how narrowly the original budget was defeated, I think maybe it deserves another chance. So my motion or my alteration would be to reference the original operating budget.
If you would like to amend the warrant
Yes,
article.
amend the warrant
Can
article
you-
to provide for, instead of the revised operating budget, the.
Your number is there.
Right, the 6,085.45.
6 million.
Can you,
6 million, yeah.
Tom, I would need to have that in writing, what you want to amend, so that we can get it, and then it'll be repeated before we can, we need to get a second on that amendment first. So, could you
Okay,
write that down real?
Can you go sit here?
Thank you.
You're gonna amend it, you're gonna write the amendment.
I'll try and.
you're gonna wait for that, because in motion, but then you have separate once you can read it.
Can I write the words that'll change?
You have to say, I move that, I move to amend,
Yeah,
and say what you want to change.
Oh, it's right here. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the
Oh, I see.
warrant article here.
Oh, all right.
And I guess you could write, I move to amend.
while everybody's waiting, I just wanna let everybody know there's a petition going out, for the district to get rid of the superintendent. If anybody wants to see it,
Yeah,
you can see me after this. I have the link. The schools, superintendent of schools, school district, the district. I don't know.
Maybe the administrator. Well, I know, but I'm just saying.
Sorry, I didn't know how to. Part of the district. We're just on downtime. There's a lot of people here. Oh, I can tell jokes.
They can't stop me from that.
I got plenty of jokes. You know why? You know why the chicken crossed the road? You call the people. I can go all day. I see, I do surgery on kids, so when they come in, all young kids, I gotta get, you know, they're all scared. Well, you know, toddlers and college students are about the same.
045.
Madam Clerk. It was a procedural question.
Hi,
state your name and
you bet.
address.
Susan Mattielli, 260 Watley Falls Road. So my question overall has continued to be, why and how do we construct that default budget to be something that's not sustainable?
Thank you.
By any means, like, not even just extra stuff. It's not sustainable, right, you'd say? How do we construct that number? That it would not,
It's just last year's number, essentially.
so just what you did last year, and you're not adding any like increases,
No, and
percentage based on,
I can explain a little bit further.
please do.
Typically, the gap between a default budgeted and operating budget would not be as extreme as $400,000. A couple of years ago, a different select board decided to make, I believe it was the cost of living adjustments and the paving warrant articles. So they came out of the operating budget. That operating budget was passed and the warrant articles were passed. But because $250,000 for paving and about $80,000 for cost of living adjustments had come out of that budget, it sort of, lack of a better term, falsely lowered the operating budget. So when you get the default budget by state statute, you get last year's budget plus any long-standing contracts you signed. We ended up with actually 2 years prior budget, which had been deflated by a large amount for paving and a large amount for cost of living.
Why 2 years? We vote every year. So why was it 2 years long?
We do, but it was essentially the same budget that we had used 2 years prior. It was lowered by virtue of taking things that were normally part of the operating budget and pulling them out as warrant articles to give the town a voice specifically on whether they wanted to provide cost of living adjustment or do paving projects.
So
That was 1 year prior, or that was 2 years prior?
This is one, that budget is actually 1 year prior,
Okay. Okay,
but it reflects a rather significant reduction that wouldn't normally be there.
and the law doesn't say that you should increase it for
Yeah.
cost of living or,
And because the other warrant articles were passed, the warrant articles for paving and the warrant articles for capital
right,
funds, that sort of thing, were all passed, the board has no ability to use them for anything except paving or to put in the capital reserve funds.
would you say we would do that again, knowing what happened?
It would be up to the electorate
Okay,
whether they wanted to do it.
thank you.
Hey, Tommy, have your amendment to propose?
Pardon?
You put your amendment forward? So I
So you're gonna read the amendment?
You have it here.
yeah.
Okay, the amendment is, shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $6,085 and $545.
Correction. 6 million.
Pardon?
6 million.
I'm sorry, 6 million. That's okay. $6,085,545. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $5,686,521, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the select board or bylaw. The select board recommends this article.
And stop.
Pardon?
Don't read the rest.
Majority vote required, right?
Yeah, well,
Is there a second to the amendment? There's a second?
Cynthia Nazarian McLean.
Cynthia
Nazari McLean.
Nazari McLean. Any discussion on the amendment now that it's been seconded? Yes.
Respectfully,
Name,
Adam Griffith, 5 Riverside Farm Drive.
thank you.
That number's already been rejected by the electorate.
Yeah, that's fine.
If we're trying to make a stopgap
Yeah,
work, if we're looking for this $400,000 balance to make things work without laying people off and without completely crippling the town's budget, I would certainly speak against that amendment and go with the number that was derived here. I love the suggestion that there might be, again, whether or not it was best practices to split out cost of living, a supplemental insurance adjustment, an adjustment based on inflation. Like a separate warrant article that would address that $400,000, roughly speaking, above and beyond the default budget. That I would support, but just sending this back to an electorate that's already rejected the $6 million number, I don't feel is prudent. Thank you.
Tom Fournier, Lamprey Lane. First off, thank you for your service to our community. Bottom line, it's not an easy job. Yeah, we appreciate you being up here, and you know, as a community, I think this is a room full of extremely good people who want to do the right thing by everyone. So first, I want to just clear the air there and just say thank you for that. I will say in response, more of a point of
You're
response.
speaking to the amendment?
I am speaking to
Okay.
them. I'm just thanking you all first.
Okay,
Just
that's
thought that'd be polite since it's
No,
a
that's fine.
It might be nice to go away with a smile. So I'm speaking the amendment and specifically to the impact comments that were placed out here. Obviously, the community's already spoken and given their appeals for what they would like. I would say that one thing that I was concerned about, the lack of comments in here on what else we're doing in our attachment to some of the bigger issues. I think some of the comments that we have and some of the focus on this budget don't address some of the bigger draws on our budget. I know that our participation in the Oyster River School District is a pass-through, but it's still a pass-through that is half of our taxes, more than half of our taxes in our property. There's been many, many occasions over the last year that have raised a lot of concerns about how that's being addressed. This, I know, you have no power over the school board, I understand that, but you do have influence. And the people here are not wrong for asking for, or denying a budget, but they are wrong in the fact that, not asking for more action from our representation and response to what appears to be a very, very confusing time of year for budgeting with that school district that we all pay for and support. It's $60 million, and we're quibbling over hundreds of thousands of dollars. $60 million of which we pay the most amount to as taxpayers. $60 million that we recently had to reject several titles. So what I'd like to see is how we're coordinating with the Oyster River School District, the school board, to talk about the timing and placement of capital projects, long-term strategic plans, and how those are laid out. We had a year where Durham raised its property tax, Lee raised its property tax and assessment. You had a major article for the school expansion project, and it's all with one bill payer, us. So a coordinated effort, something in here or something that talks about, here's how we're getting at this problem that doesn't necessarily go directly to your specific impacts within this town, but community in which we all pool together to have a great school district for our children. No one moved here because they wanted a bad school district. But the tax is here. We can't just say it's DC. We can't just say it's Concord. We can't just say when there are discussions that aren't being had here, and that there are discussions that, frankly, would have raised ears for me as it raised ears, at the deliberative session when I heard rejection of a budget committee, an external audit to actually see where a lot of this money was going, if we could find some actual money back to the community, the taxpayers, and an excess return to go back to the taxpayers, all shut down. That would have been a letter of concern I would hope that my representation from Lee would have sent to them saying, I'm really concerned about this. This is a pass-through check, but these are our constituents. These are our people. We have the most kids going there. We pay the most, and we're up against the budget. You have a great town hall. We basically had 2 double wides put together, and we'd love to invest in our community. I don't think anyone here does not want to invest in their community. We want the people, especially as men and women that run into a burning building to save our lives. We want to make sure they have what they need. We want to make sure the town clerks have to put in all of our stuff in the system and make sure they register, and that we want them to have insurance. We want them to have those things. At the same time, we have to hold those people accountable or at least have a question, or at least raise concern or use our influence, which the purse is influential. The amount of students we have is influential. But it does not seem to be a problem for certain parties or certain entities or groups or organizations to work the deliberative session process to mandate that. We have 1 board seat for all the people we have and all the money we spend. That's not necessarily representation, for specifically. There's our at-large positions. But when it represents such a large piece, we're quibbling over thousands of dollars. A $60 million budget that we don't have, that was an audit was given, that was pushed down, that excess money that was in the budget was turned down. Those things concern me. So I want to know, in this, when we talk about here's the problems and here's how we're going to get after it, I want to know how we're working towards joint capital strategy with the community so that we understand when big projects are going down and we can time things like property raises, so stuff like this doesn't seem so huge in a year where so much seems to come to the taxpayers. I want to see a plan where we demand an external audit that comes in and tells us what we're getting for our money and that we're getting the most for it. Most, I believe in that proposal, the article is most districts that did it at 3% savings. It seems like it's not our necessary problem to this warrant, but I think it speaks directly to why this warrant is having such a hard time, because I feel that people are feeling so pressed and not getting the most from an embroiled and embattled school district right now. So I know that it's a pass-through, I know we don't have control over it, but you do have influence, and we'd like to see you execute that influence. Thank you very much, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Other comments on the amendment?
Your phone's not all over your pocket.
I just need
Your name
clarification. Oh,
and
Nicole
address, please.
Montanez, 40 Northside Road. I just need clarification between the default and the one you guys are pushing, or wanting to push through. On your slides here, you talked about that we had to reduce social services agency, eliminating fundings for overtime wages, trainings, conferences, recreational activities, library materials, and the budget for commissions and committees. But on this page, it talks about having to reduce which assists our neighbors who are facing domestic violence or substance use, community events, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanna know your numbering, what is actually not being able to be paid for with default.
The social service agencies that the town typically funds are what Matt Rustica referenced in the select board's points letter. We have about 10 agencies. Those serve people, because we don't have domestic violence facilities for people that need to be taken from a situation in the town of Lee, because we don't have a drug crisis center, that type of thing. The Red Cross falls under that. Those are all things that we are asked to fund. Those agencies come to the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee, present the numbers of people that they've served in the community of Lee over the past year, and give us an estimate of what they need from us for basically a donation, funding from the town. Those were cut in the proposed budget. As I said, the department heads and the select board went through the budget and looked for things that were essential to keep the town operating. Those services won't go away immediately. We've funded them up until now. And I don't know to the degree which those agencies would refuse service. I don't know that they would, but they rely heavily on us to fund them like all other towns, and that money was taken out of the revised budget.
Which I understand, but you're talking about 173,000, but you have a lot of different things on here, like overtime wages. Like, how much are you looking at? Like, how much is each thing on this list? There's like 10 things that you're saying you have to cut for 173.
The overtime wages in that reduction were primarily non-police, non-fire, and non-snow plowing. Basically, not folks like me, because I'm on salary, I don't get paid overtime, but other people in the town office, that type of thing. That was the
No,
overtime
I
wages.
understand that, but like, where are you getting these numbers?
Dollar amount.
Yeah, like, I'm not being super picky, but I'm just saying that there's a lot listed that's gonna be removed, but it doesn't seem like all of those things would cost 173.
I think those things would very definitely cost $173,000. The social services agencies alone are, over $20,000. Overtime budgets, most of the departments have $4,000 or $5,000 in overtime that were taken out. I think the library cut $3,500 from their materials line. That was an exact number taken from our budget worksheets that we use.
If you go
Line by
back,
line.
so if you go to our website, leanh.org, and you look at the select board meeting agenda from April 13th, the documents include the line by line.
It just seemed like it was big.
It's big, but it's 20,000 from the rec, it's all of the committees and commissions, it's a lot of little things that add up to 170.
Any other comments on the amendment that's been on the floor?
John Tampa, 187 Stepping Stones Road. The previous warrant article that was rejected by the voters ends with a line that explains the purpose of this meeting, which is to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. So this amendment is to propose not a revised budget, with the same budget. I don't think you can legally do that.
Other comments on the amendment?
Christopher Barcy, 56 Campground Road. I see two numbers there. One is bold, one is not bold. In the bold one, I believe it was just referenced that there's a line-by-line budget for that. Is that right? Can we see the line-by-line budget for the default budget?
I do not have that with me, no.
Okay. Does one exist?
So it
Yes.
doesn't exist, because the default budget is a number. We can then decide to put the money where we want. So we don't have to follow the exact distribution of last year. Which we
Understood.
probably can't, because, like, it includes some paving, it has $50,000 for paving, I believe, in it. We're not gonna do that because we have other paving money, so we're gonna use that to try to offset not firing people.
I understand. So my question is, to me this feels lopsided, so how can we make an informed decision about between these two numbers if we don't know what's gonna happen with the default budget? In other words, there are comments about how the town, which is comprises us, individuals, are gonna be affected, but we don't know exactly how. So how can we make an informed decision today?
Speak to that. That's a discussion with respect to the select board, how they would make those negotiated cuts with some of the different departments within the town of Lee. So right now, we don't have a particular vision at this time about what would happen. Obviously, there's certain things that are very important to the town, such as safety. So those would be looked at very carefully. But as you can see in the revised budget we put forward, we took out things like budget for commissions, and we just talked about with respect to some of the agencies. Well, there are probably some other areas that we'll look at that are probably not directly tied to safety.
Understood,
Okay, let's put something on the table, obviously the transfer station. There's a very important job and responsibility with the town of Lee. Maybe the hours might be cut instead of Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, there might be a half a day on Tuesday or something. So we will be looking along those lines, areas that will not have a reduction of major services within a town and safety services within a town.
I understand. I guess my point is that when there are comments about how there will be serious effects or the town won't be able to meet its needs, we can't know that exactly what those needs are going to be or not going to be. That's my point.
I understand, thank you.
Colin Lee Butler, 3 Spencer Lane. Just to echo some of the earlier comments, beyond just the increase in the legality of it all, just want everybody to consider the fact that if we do go back to the original one, we risk it failing again, and if it fails, we are at the default budget only, which puts us in the position that I don't think any of us want to be at, even if we don't fully understand what that impact is going to look like yet. We do know it will be an impact that we will feel in some way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Any other comments on the amendment?
I have a question. Cynthia Nazarian McLean, 51 Harmony Mill Road. I have a question. So when you put this budget together, things were a lot cheaper? So things like gas and stuff like that. How do I ask this question? How much is that gonna impact, or how much more are you gonna have to spend that you didn't anticipate? Do you have any idea?
We don't have any hard and fast idea. I will say that the Lee Select Board is at sort of a double disadvantage right now because we're in a fiscal year. So we start the budgeting process at the end of August, the beginning of September, and they are trying to guess, what fuel prices and electricity and that sort of thing is going to be the following July. Throw in the international climate that we're in economically right now, and it's anyone's guess what essential services are going to cost over the course of the next 14 months or so.
So that money would have to come out of something that's not already identified, right? Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on the amendment? Okay, let's proceed to vote on the amendment. So the amendment was to change the bolded number to $6,085,545 instead of the $5,912,237. So all those in,
Point of order, Could we have the clerk read the total amendment, please?
Says, shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate it as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately? The amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $6,085,545. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $5,686,521, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the select board or by law.
Billionaire backlash in Walmart.
All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your card.
You say, ask that again? I can't hear you because.
All,
She's trying to mute it. She's trying.
good time to suggest everyone put their phones on silent. So all those in favor of the proposed amendment, please raise your voter card. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your voter card. Motion fails. Other comments on the warrant article as presented?
Casper, 16 Eldorado Point Drive. I'm really concerned about that small amount of money, $20,000 for. Okay, I'm very concerned about the $20,000 that we are proposing to cut from social services, because I think we're forgetting the way grants and funding works. When I help the town get a grant to buy something, I have to help the town also find the 10 to 25% it costs to get the rest of that covered. When we take $20,000 away, we're taking so much more money away from this community. This is where this whole community, that's the only safety net we have. This problem that's happening in our town is happening in every single person's homes. They are struggling, and it's gonna get really, really bad. So taking away the one safety net we have to help make sure we don't fall through the cracks doesn't make sense to me. I understand we can't put exactly the same budget back, I get that, but I would like to propose that we add whatever the total amount of social services exactly was back in. I can give you those numbers and write. $20,475 cents. I would like to propose writing an amendment to.
Okay, I need to write it down.
Yes, don't I need a second as well?
When you get the write it down.
And then, okay, right in a second. Okay.
She had a question.
My question is, she wants a specific amount for a school. She's saying she wants, Nicole Martinez 40, north side, she's saying she wants 20,000 specifically for that. In this article, does it need to, like, be stated exactly that that amount of money would be going to that, so it's not allocated somewhere else?
It can't actually be stated in the operating budget. Because this is a special hearing, we can only consider the operating budget, not any other warrant articles. And the operating budget, by its very definition, is a bottom line budget, meaning the select board can move money as they see fit with anything, as long as they don't go over the bottom line.
Okay, so even though she really wants it specifically for that one thing, it's not guaranteed that that's exactly.
It's not a guarantee. but
Exactly.
Most select boards would.
Exactly, so it may not.
Except for this one a few years ago, but, not this one, the one we used to have. The number is $20,420.
75.
And then you're also going to close the And then down here, I propose to change this number. Or I amend.
John?
Yes, John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. I just wanted to present some information. Someone asked, what is in the default budget? Well, I have the default budget here and the calculation of it. That's on DRA form MS-DTB, and that was an attachment to a select board agenda. And so if people are interested in that, if they can't make the select board, you can at least go online and look at the select board agendas every 2 weeks when they have the meetings, and the attachments, and you can read it line by line. That default budget is not something that the select board or the town has really any control over. We put in the numbers where they're supposed to be, and if you want to make any change from previous year, you have to justify why it's a change. And DRA has to agree.
Right, the DRA representative goes through each of those lines with me and says yea or nay.
Your amendment, yes. Shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purpose set forth therein, totaling $5,932,812. Should this article be defeated, the default shall be set at $5,686,521, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the select board or by law. The select board recommends this article. I don't, never mind. The end there. I don't know if they recommend the article, so I can't. Okay.
So what did you?
So I just changed the number from 5912337 to 5932812.
Is there a second to the proposed amendment?
Second it.
Second. And then we have now discussion on the proposed amendment, where we changed slightly the amount of money that's voted.
Who seconded?
Tara.
Tara
Hicks Johnson.
Hicks Johnson. Thank you.
Colin Blake Butler, 3 Spencer Lane. To that statement, I just want to make it clear, since that money being put back in cannot be mandated to be used for something, but the voters' intent and will here is that money, if we do pass this, will be for the social services. I just want that to be clear. Thank you.
Other comments on the proposed amendment? John?
And that changes the difference between the two, which previously was 30 cents per thousand to 33 cents per thousand.
Other comments on the amendment, proposed amendment? Okay, Shannon, would you read the?
All right. So shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including operations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $5,932,812. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $5,686,521, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous section actions of the select board or by law.
Thank you. All those in favor of the proposed amendment to the warrant article, raise your card. All those opposed to that?
You want to count?
Yeah. We're gonna count because it's pretty, so all those in favor of the proposed amendment, raise your card so they can count, please. No, in favor of.
You promised to use it.
those opposed, please raise your card. The amendment passed. Any other comments on the warrant article as amended?
So we can call the question at this point. Anybody else? Final call?
Final call for any other comments or questions on the warrant article as now amended and voted number.
Make one over, Colin Butler, Lee, 3 Spencer Lane. Just want to speak to the town operating budget in the context of the total tax burden. While we are here to discuss municipal operations, we cannot ignore that our residents view their tax bill as a single mounting obligation, the majority of which is driven by the school district. I urge the select board and this body to recognize that while the town does not control the school budget, it is not powerless. Following the lead of our neighboring town councils, Lee should exercise its platform to exert formal influence regarding the school district's fiscal trajectory. This is especially critical given the current instability within the district. We have staff who have issued an 88% vote of no confidence against the superintendent who has overseen 12 grievances in less than 2 years compared to only 1 in the preceding 30 years. This has resulted in a significant amount of taxpayer money being diverted towards fighting legal grievances rather than being utilized in our classroom where those funds belong. By taking a proactive collaborative stance in the overall tax impact and demanding accountability for how these funds are managed, the town can help ensure that our total municipal and educational costs remain sustainable for all residents. I ask that this intent to advocate for broader fiscal transparency and the administrative accountability be placed on the permanent record. And to Jim's point, for anybody who wants to learn more, you can go to oysterrivertogether.com. Thank you.
So I'm gonna ask then, if there's no other further comments, that the town clerk and the select board will place the final article on the ballot for the second half of this special town meeting. The voting portion of this will be held on Tuesday, June the 9th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from the first floor here at the Lee Public Safety Complex. Thank you very much for your coming today for this important meeting of our town business.
Did anybody drop this on the floor by the check-in table? It says gold on it.
Okay.
Must have dropped from someone's wallet when you got here. Like,
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
I got hers right here. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.